Hey, what is up, everybody? Jeremy here, and as always, I'm bringing you guys some incredible people, big visions, big goals, and they're people that are changing the world. And today I have somebody that is a very dear friend of mine, and also somebody that I'm going to be publishing my own book with, so I'm very, very excited with that. So Jesse Krieger, welcome back, man.
What's up? How you doing, Jeremy? Good to see you again.
Absolutely. I know you and I did an episode, I want to say 500 episodes ago. If that sounds a little crazy, it was around that amount of time. So your story may be a little bit new to people. So, you know, they can totally check back with the earlier episode if they want to get everything. But I guess just leading into it, how do you decide to publish books, man? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, the short version is, I myself wrote a book, started writing in 2010. It eventually turned into Lifestyle Entrepreneur. Live your dreams, ignite your passions, run your business from anywhere in the world. And it was published first in Southeast Asia, print only, not like an Amazon launch. I went over there, toured the region, toured Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, became a business bestseller, got a publishing deal in the US, updated the book. It came out in 2014. And I expected they were going to do this huge promo for me. And ultimately, it didn't work out that way. So I came to this decision point. Do I really learn how to do book marketing and like get this skill set mastered, or claim victory and move on to something else? Because my book had already come out and it did well somewhere. So I chose that option to really learn book marketing and really learn about the publishing industry at large. And one thing led to another. People were working on books, asked my opinion. Eventually they started saying, can you do it for me? Can you publish my book? And thus was born Done For You Publishing, which 6 years later, it's still our core way that we work with authors through the whole publishing process.
You know what I really love, and I find this as so many people I talk to, is like the business you build, run, and create ends up being something that was solving your own problem. And I love that because I don't know. I feel like you know the pain points, you know the problems, and you're like, we got to fix that. I guess what's been your experience with that?
I think that's very much how I approach my book itself. Like, it's the book I wish I read when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. So I was writing it to like someone who wants a life of entrepreneurship, isn't necessarily getting encouragement or the real support they need in their immediate life. And here's someone who's done it and done it multiple times and laying out a path to do it. So yeah, very much the same approach in terms of like how I've built the things that we do at Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press. And I think each book, each author is just that incremental gains process, which now I just love because it's cumulative,
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm going to throw the question at you then everybody throws me in the podcast world. And that's kind of, should everybody write a book?
Honestly, no. I mean, I'll just come out and say it. Like, I don't see it's my job to say you should write a book, because that's like opening Pandora's box.
Yep.
Rather, when someone arrives at a point, and I know you've gone through your own process on this, to arrive where you're like, all right, I want to do a book. I'm going to do a book.
I've always told myself no, and I've had a ton of people finally telling me like, what the hell is wrong with you? Yes. And I'm like, all right, enough people are telling me I'm dumb. I need to do this.
For you, it totally makes sense. But like, should everybody in the world? No. Could everybody? Yes. If you want to write, writing itself can be a transformational process. But like, to put yourself out there as an author, creating authority, helping others, for talking about nonfiction, positioning your book as one of your best business development tools. Yes, there is a whole process there, but it's an undertaking. It's not an overnight thing. It's not like whipping out a blog post. It does take some thought, some intention. And that's really what we guide authors through from sort of start to finish.
So I guess if I'm like somebody that I'm thinking I'm at the right point, I'm kind of weighing it. Like how do you know if like you're kind of at that point to move forward, or at least like give it a shot? Like, what's kind of the best time to take a look at this?
Yeah, I think there is an internally driven sense of like, this feels like a top priority in my life right now, or like it's something that you've wanted to do for a while, and now for whatever reason it's bubbled up to be like an imperative. Those are really good signs. The strategic one would be if you've gotten your business off the ground, you've gotten some results for people over at least a few years, then that's another great signpost to be like, all right, well, what is that process? What is the sequence of events that you've taken people through or helped them to accomplish certain goals, overcome problems, improve their life in some way? That also becomes the right basis to approach writing a book.
Well, I guess from that standpoint, then, like, like one of the things I was looking at is I felt like with where I'm at in my business, like, right, if I can achieve this, and not to say like out of the gate you're going to, like, but if I can achieve the title of best-selling author, I feel like that does kind of help me in my trajectory and where I'm going to go. I guess when we're looking at it, like, is that an important thing to be considering, when you're putting out your book? Like, should you be worried about, like, the best-seller title, or how does that kind of fit with the whole thought
That's actually a
process
really
here?
great question. Like, from a high level, there's the appeal. I want to write a book and become a best-selling author. Okay. But before we get there, you've got to write the book. And that actually becomes can be a substantial process. But on the other side of it, yes, like every book that we publish, it's our goal to make it at least an Amazon bestseller, and at best, much more. And I think it checks a box. Like, to be a best-selling author, I see it as equivalent as like a PhD or an executive title. If you look at media, look at TV, the guests that come on to shows, they're either Dr. So-and-so or best-selling author of, or like founder and CEO of.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the authority plays, is to write a book and really encapsulate your knowledge and experience in an easy to deliver form. It also becomes one of the best tickets onto media. Like, if you just look through your podcast history, how many of your guests are authors, in addition to whatever else they did? But is that appealing to
Right.
you if someone's written a book as a potential guest, right, for the show?
And I guess, like, because like, I guess a lot of my guests have been like New York Times bestsellers. I guess when you're looking at like different lists, like there's New York Times, there's Wall Street Journal, there's Amazon, there's USA Today. Like, I guess when you're looking at prestige, like at different lists, does it really matter that much, or is it just kind of the title of best-selling author somewhere that matters?
Honestly, in my opinion, it's the latter. I don't know too
Mm.
many people that comb through the New York Times bestseller list and read what are the top 10.
I can't tell you how long it's been since I've read a
Yeah, I mean,
newspaper.
what are the top 10 best-selling books this week? Like, oh, let me go get them all. So it actually ends up being like, we laugh about it, but this is
There's probably one person in the world that does that, and in my head, I just pictured this older guy with glasses sitting in front of me, and he's like, Nancy, the bestsellers are out.
oh,
Anyway,
this is the paper from last month. What are you doing? It's like,
anyway, continue.
but,
I cut you off.
so like, that's my perspective. This is my non-conventional perspective, right? Nobody except authors really cares who publishes the book. And few people besides authors are really tracking on the bestseller list and relative positions of books. But the net effect is, to hit the list and check the box, you become a bestseller for life. You accomplish it once, even if it's for a week or whatever, and then you're a best-selling author moving forward. Same as if you're in a band and you have a #1 hit song. That's not for all time. That's for that week when the chart's being created. So
Right.
if you think of it through that perspective, it becomes a it becomes a math problem. How do we move enough units in a period of time to, relative to other books in our category, be the top one? And that's what it
Okay,
comes
so
down to.
let's take a look at this then. So we've taken a look at it, and we've checked the first couple boxes here. Like, we're at the right point. I have a unique thing to say, and it needs to be said. Then we're looking at the title of bestseller. Now, I guess, what things do I need to be considering so that I can really synthesize something great? And I'm sure this is a loaded question. So I can really synthesize something great that, maybe I'm not guaranteed that, but it at least gives me my best shot of getting there. Like, what things should I be looking at?
Yeah, the game with, from my view, it's really about driving pre-sales of the book, driving pre-orders before the release date. So like, if you're self-publishing, a little bit different game, but with a publisher, like for us, we'll schedule a release date some months out into the future. And then there's a listing on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Indigo Chapters, you name it, every retailer. And then our process is to help the author drive pre-orders of the book. Those get accumulated, and then they all drop on the release date. And so that week when the book is released.
So that's like all like a day one drop then that you're kind of working up to.
The New York Times, like up until recently, I don't know exactly right now, but 30-40% of the nonfiction books on New York Times was a manufactured process selling between 4,000 to 5,000 books in wholesale quantities and 5,000 to 7,000 to individual customers. You combine those up, they all get counted on the launch week. 12,000 or so units getting moved is what gets you in the running for New York Times. There's more to it than that, but just from a numbers perspective. And so what a lot of people would do, honestly, is get the Fortune 5,000 list, and the author would spend the money to print and send a copy to every CMO on the Fortune 5,000. Okay,
that's a lot of work.
Ask for it, but they're receiving it, and it counts as an individual sale. And so, you know, you do the math. Is that like a worthwhile endeavor to try and manufacture a list placement on one of the big lists? On the other end of the spectrum, like our mutual friend, George Bryant, he was on New York Times for over 20 weeks. And it was because he had major media dropping 1 to 3 times a week for 20 plus weeks. And so every other day he's hitting the airwaves, he's hitting the print, the online, and that actually creates the organic groundswell of book buys to hit it organically. And I think, you know, for some, this isn't something many people talk about. There's some stigma to it. I don't care. I'll say it as it is. Like 3,000 to 4,000 units can get you in USA Today, 5,000 or so Wall Street Journal, 11, 12,000 plus in a week to be a contender for New York Times. And with Amazon, it's relative to other books in the category.
Sure.
And so that's how it shakes out. I think there, you could get all wound up like trying to hit a list and make it such an important thing that we could lose sight of, well, hell, if 2,000 people got a copy of my book in their hands and I'm not on a list, is that a win? In my view, that's a huge win, because what percentage of those 2,000 people want to do something more with you as a result of reading that book? And that's the positioning piece for the business growth.
Well, let's take a look at that then, because I wanted to kind of handle that first before we kind of move a little bit further there. Because I think for a lot of people, I know even for myself, until the last couple of months, I'm like, oh, if I'm not going to write a book that's going to be in New York Times, I'm not going to do it. And somebody else says you're crazy. So, you know, like, I think it's important to take a look at that. Sure, those things are cool, but like, it's literally just about people having the right number of units to sell. It doesn't mean their book impacted. It didn't mean their book made a difference. It doesn't mean it grew their business. I think it's really important to take a look at. So I guess then when we're kind of shifting now, like, I guess, what does writing a book that matters look like? And that's kind of where I want to take this conversation.
Oh, that's a great question, man. And it's the right question too, because it's like the starting question. So, you know, for nonfiction and for sort of business related, self-help, even spirituality related, if somebody's getting results for clients, has gotten results in their own life and business, I say, look at like, what is that process? And if you want like a quick breakdown of how that could look in terms of an outline, if the first 3 chapters of the book are really speaking to your client's before state, what are they struggling with? What does their life look like now? What do they want to overcome? Where do they feel stuck? You speak to that in the beginning, even if it seems repetitive, because that's what lets people know, oh, this person understands me in my situation, so I want to hear what they have to say. Then chapters 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, perhaps, that becomes your process. That's the mechanism through which you help people get results. So if it's like on podcasting, maybe it's getting your media page right, getting some initial shows so that you can say, look, I've been interviewed before, and whatever, right? But that's the steps of the process to achieve the result. And then the final chapters, 9, 10, and a conclusion is like the off ramp, right? Now that you understand, you know, where you were at before, you have a process to get results, where do you take it from here? And that's where you look at like the next step. Like, okay, now you understand podcasts, like, let's get you on your first 50 or something. And then you sort of wrap up the book with an empowering next step that takes into account everything you've shared. So that's at a high level, but that's a book that matters because someone that reads it can get to know you through the stories you share in your writing style, learn something, overcome a problem, or achieve a result. And then positioning, like for you, now they've read your book, and now they can get in touch with you to do some kind of work together. And that's like the appropriate role of a book, bridging into the broader business and what you have to offer.
So that's actually a perfect place for us to take this, because I liken this to what people say to me with podcasting. Like, there's a lot of people, you may or may not remember this, but there was a South Park episode about 10 years ago where they always talked about making the magical internet money, and they thought they were going to like make all this money on YouTube or whatever. And I see a lot of people that jump into podcasting for that reason. Like, they think the podcast is this thing that's going to make them all this money and blah, 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 because they see Joe Rogan and they see guys like that. It's like 1% or 0.5% of people are actually going to do that. I look at the podcast as kind of a vehicle for what your business is doing to get out there. And the thing I want to kind of liken this to in the book world and get your opinion on this, do you see the book for most people as something that's kind of a centerpiece to position their business the right way? Or do you think people should be looking at their book as their business?
Another great question. I feel like you've done this before.
I've done this a couple times, man.
So like, it's okay. So I think the appropriate answer there is you don't do a book just for the sake of writing a book, unless it's like your own memoir or poetry or something that is just going to be personally fulfilling to you to put it down. I think the right approach to take is like sort of what I mentioned is I started thinking like, what if I knew these strategies 8-9 years ago, would I have approached entrepreneurship different? And that was the lens through which I wrote like an entire process to come up with an idea, build an online business, and structure it in a way that you can manage it from anywhere in the world. So you have a cool lifestyle, right? And to do it without making all the mistakes I made, hopefully. And so that's the lens for like, and in that sense, it can both be like a business accelerator for the line of business you're in, or in my case, I used the book as a transition from being an operator, like I had started businesses and my face and name wasn't even on the website, to now, here's a book of my life, my ideas, my strategies, and it's me talking about it. So it was a bridge to being more out front, to being a more semi-public figure and more of an authority, which of course, the root word of authority is author.
Ha!
And so as you author your book, you are authoring your own authority on this subject, on this topic. Not everything in the world, but on what you're writing about intelligibly.
Well, we've covered a lot of different stuff here, Jesse. And if I'm somebody that's listening to this, I'm like, man, this guy's not only brilliant, he's handsome. I know he can help me like kind of get my book out there in the right way. So if I'm hearing this, and, you know, I maybe want to chat with you or connect with you to see if like I'm in the right place to start thinking about a book, you know, where's kind of the best place for me to go?
100%. LifestyleEntrepreneursPress.com. And there's a page there. It says publish. It talks all about our publishing process, and you can check out our other books and lots of free author training there. And I also operate a crowdfunding site for authors called Publishizer, publishizer.com. Publishizer. And we have a platform that allows authors to create and run a campaign that both pre-sells their book, as well as like coaching, business services, mastermind, retreat, events, and packaging that all up in the book campaign, so to speak. And that's a way to both fund your own self-publishing journey or connect with publishers, including yours truly.
Very cool. Well, Jesse Krieger, thank you so much for coming back today, man. And thank you so much for outlining for us, not only to what looking at a best-selling book, but looking at a book that matters, because I feel like that is really what we need to be looking at. So thank you today, my friend.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, everyone, for listening.